You're watching Truth Talk News.
Al Gore was on the morning shows pushing his new book and speaking about how the big polluters are spending huge sums of money to convince people that global warming doesn't exist, much like for many years the tobacco industry spent vast sums of money to promote the idea that cancer is not caused by cigarette smoking. Clearly, the latter about the cigarette smoking is truth. But then Mr. Gore said that the recent storms and all of the other problems that we're having have not been addressed. It's global warming is not being addressed as the situation. And this is how covert, clever, cunning, and concise these people are. The controllers, the social controllers, the engineers, wishing to again fleece the people and bring them to serfdom, take away property rights, put in the many planks of the Communist Manifesto in our own country. We're descending into authoritarian, totalitarian, socialist government, where the government does what it says and says what it does, and the people, mostly due to this basically insiders that have infiltrated our government, get these agendas, these Agenda 21 protocols put into place. Again, they have the Davos meeting, the World Forum, the Bilderberg every year. These social controllers have an intention on bringing about one world dictatorial government. You're going to like it. You're going to love to like it. In fact, you're going to embrace it. You're going to love it. Like Aldous Huxley said, the key to it is to get people to actually love their servitude. And that's where we're heading in this country. People love their servitude. Yeah, they're struggling, but then when they really think about it, aside from the fact that we're being deindustrialized and the value of the dollar is diminishing at an exorbitant rate, nobody has to tell you this. The market is out of control. There's no consumer confidence. It's just those that have are feeling it, but they're it's not affecting their lives. Those that are right on the line are struggling to keep their businesses afloat, or their households afloat. And then there are those that are just on the government dime, and they're suffering too because costs are rising. As much as they want to say they want to keep controlling prices and controlling currencies, it's all manipulation. It's not control, ladies and gentlemen. We moved off the gold standard, and this is where we've gotten. It's gotten that much worse. And then there's, of course, these periods of when the money supply is expanded, where there's tremendous growth, and then crashes, design crashes, and the insiders know where these things are coming. They have the foresight to plan, in many cases, in a Hegelian dialectic manner. Problem, reaction, solution. They create the problem, and then they offer the solution to the reaction. The people are the crisis. For example, the banking crisis. The people freaking out. The answer is to give bankers trillions of dollars. People have gotten to wake up and realize that our government has been hijacked by forces that wish to enslave humanity. And I mean that directly. And to love your servitude means that you have a nice car, you have a nice house, you have all of these things, um, but you're a slave to the debt system, that car payment, that mortgage payment, um, credit, worthless paper, while the assets, the real assets, are held by these people. Gold and gems and all sorts of other assets and mines. They own mines. um, you have to understand that their intention is to make you a serf. And if you're strong enough to be in there, or I should say, if your genes are enough of the proper breeding, because again, it's not unlike Nazism. It's really, in fact, many Nazis and New World Order proponents, supported the Nazis. The Rockefeller Foundation, the Rockefeller, they actually were high in the eugenics. They still are. They call it now. They call it genetic engineering or the genome projects. Now here in Connecticut, they're going to be having at the University of Connecticut, UConn, in Farmington. There's going to be building the UConn Medical Center. They'll be building on a genetic research facility. Governor Malloy is real proud of this. See, he's not aware of what these social engineers, the scientific dictatorship is doing. Getting back to today and Al Gore, he was saying that the cigarette companies did this. Now, as treacherous as these people are, sure, they're not pushing out their propaganda, their global warming propaganda, at this point as a Hegelian ploy, and then they're utilizing the fact that nobody's responding to that as their problem. See, and then the reaction is, see, this is the people that are reacting. The solution is global warming is really existing. See, they're suppressing the truth. No. Global warming, at best, is natural, and things are just happening as they do in cycles. Or, I mean, everyone's all scared of these movies. They make movies about these terrible storms and asteroids hitting the planet and all this shit. And it's all, again, about social control. They control your mind through the media. What about global warming being, of course, the Hegelian dialectic, used in the Hegelian sense? So we have this big problem. We have to stop global warming. The polluters are now supposedly funding this anti-global warming facade. So now the insiders, supposedly, they're against this. Well, the truth of the matter is that you have a federal government that is in bed with General Electric, who gets all sorts of waivers and tax incentives and credits. Okay, so they can pollute all they want, and they do in other countries. Yet America is going to pay for this. So that's your little fraud there, Al. The ClimateGate came out. I mean, he's just trying to continue the lie. Speaking of which, to tell a lie loud enough and long enough, and people will believe it. Adolf Hitler said that. And that's the consensus of global warming, because at best, as I mentioned, it is just nature. But at worst, which is what I fear, is that all of these technologies and enhancements that have been since the 1960s to control weather patterns are being used to starve countries out and create droughts instead of to help them. And the opposite is true with with everything that they do. So instead of trying to help people, the cloud seedings and all this, that's the truth. And we have a situation where all of these aspects have to do with social control, and now getting global warming, so you'll pay more carbon taxes because you got to take care of the earth. And they have the weapons, HARP, chemtrails to manipulate the weather and to create droughts and storms, superstorms. Maybe they just tapped the storm a little bit. Look what happened. They think they are gods, those at the top in control. They feel they are in control. To some extent, of course, they are. But we can stop them. Just have to raise awareness. Things are not as they appear to be. And Al Gore has been exposed through ClimateGate and other things as just being a shill. I mean, he has 2 houses that are 20,000 square feet. I mean, what kind of a carbon footprint does he leave? But again, if you tell the lie long enough, the people will believe it. That's why you have to find places like this, here, for truth. Seek truth, share truth, and don't believe what I say, but listen to what I say, research what I say, and find your own truth, because there is only one truth, and that's the truth. Your perception, your thought processes, what you think about makes it actually impresses upon you or pushes you to think a certain way, because you react to the images and the information that you're given. And what they've done through print media, magazines, pop culture, everything in between, including, of course, mainstream television, and now the alternative lies, half-truths, and the COINTELPRO, confusing everything up. So it's very difficult to find the truth. But the truth is there. Seek and ye shall find it. I'm Howard Nima. Thank you for joining me. Truth Talk News, livestream.com, and on YouTube, Freedom First Films.
UN Agenda 21, bailouts, sellouts, Lehman Brothers, Goldman Sachs, false flag, terror attacks, Bill Gates, Henry Kissinger, New World Order, mind control, Bank of America, stealing homes with cut and paste mortgage loans, police, state, taser guns, FEMA camps, Mandarin, Monsanto rules the food supply while Big Pharma dopes your mind, prison system, profiteers, foundations, fund the fears, fund the evil through the years, the world's not as it appears. CIA smuggles drugs while Wachovia and Wells Fargo launder them, then give the proceeds to the owners of the Federal Reserve Bank. Now the IRS takes money out of every single check. Money created out of thin air and leave you with debt. They want to make you a serf, a slave to their demand. They want to take your life in every way they can. Fluoride, GMO, vaccines, chemtrails, United Nations genocide. The world they show us is not real. This is how they kill and steal. Rothschild, Bundy, Rockefeller, Club of Rome. On the Georgia Guidestones it's written in stone. Cut through the matrix.
And on nights like this one,
do not
we can say to those families who have lost loved ones to Al-Qaeda's terror, justice has been done.
The lethality of their power is greater than ever. Their capacity to impose control over the politically awakened masses of the world is at a historical low. And in earlier times, it was easier to control a million people than physically to kill a million people. Today, it is infinitely easier to kill a million people than to control a million people.
Something's gotten lost. That something is the truth. What is it in us that seeks the truth? Is it our mind? Or is it our heart?
You're watching Truth Talk News.
Have not been addressed. It's global warming is not being addressed as the situation. And this is how covert, clever, cunning, and concise these people are. The controllers, the social controllers, the engineers, wishing to again fleece the people and bring them to serfdom, take away property rights, put in the many planks of the Communist Manifesto in our own country, we're descending into authoritarian, totalitarian, socialist government, where the government does what it says and says what it does, and the people, mostly due to this, basically need to promote the idea that cancer is not caused by cigarette smoking. Clearly, the latter about the cigarette smoking is truth. But then Mr. Gore said that the recent storms and all of the other problems that we're having, the big polluters are spending huge sums of money to convince people that global warming doesn't exist, much like for many years the tobacco industry spent vast sums of money.
You're watching Truth Talk News.
Al Gore was on the morning shows pushing his new book and speaking about how